This conference will now be recorded.
All right, welcome back to the virtual BrainTrust. And today I've got with me a really awesome volleyball player from the AVP, Karissa Cook. What I like about you, I didn't realize you were actually from Santa Cruz. That was one thing I did not know. I did know you were from Stanford, which so I brought my Stanford jacket out today.
Oh, nice.
I've been able to work with a little bit with the tennis side. We'll talk about that. But you know, you and your partner won the AVP at Austin, took home the gold at ANOC, Pan American Games. You know, just you've had a very distinguished career in a short amount of time as a beach volleyball player. Tell us a little bit about you, your history. Obviously, I want to talk a little about Stanford. And then the whole goal of the day is to talk about how can we keep people happy and healthy inside quarantine. How can, you know, we as professionals influence others at the moment, and how are we, you know, with our own personal struggles, how are we working through that? So thanks for being on. Thanks for taking the time. I know how difficult that is for you as an athlete, so thank you.
Yeah, well, right now I have literally all the time in the world, so not too difficult. You know, we were talking just before you hit record that right now all our beach volleyball nets are down and the beach is off limits at the risk of $1,000 fine. So yeah, happy to get on the call and spend a little bit of this extra time resource we don't usually have.
No, and that's a very point, right?
Yeah, it's an abundance thing at the moment. But yeah, a little bit about me. From Santa Cruz, grew up playing indoor and beach volleyball, lucky to do both. And then went to Stanford for undergrad and played on their indoor team as a setter. And then I went to, oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, I was one of those things said nice.
Oh, yeah. And then for my 5th year in college, I was lucky to take advantage of a little bit of a like NCAA loophole that a lot of people who play both indoor and beach get to use. But basically, you get 5 years of eligibility if you do 4 in one of the sports and 1 in the other. So I went to Hawaii after I graduated and did a year of beach volleyball there. And then I came home, thought I was done with volleyball, took about a year and a half off of playing, and then got roped into kind of helping Stanford start their beach volleyball team up. You know, started from 3 players, and I was coaching them before I would go work at my full-time tech job, and kind of got the bug again and would jump in and play with them. And yeah, and then I started playing some AVPs and was like, okay, the sport's still great, it's still fun, I'm still not terrible at it. And yeah, and then I slowly ramped into there, and now I'm playing again professionally full time.
And
So,
partner's Jace, right? Pardon?
Yeah, Jace and I played all of last year. This year there hasn't been any tournaments yet, but Summer Ross and I were planning on playing the first one and seeing how that goes. But right now it's like, if we even have tournaments, I'll be really happy.
I completely get that. She's just the Florida State Seminole, and so I ran track there. So that's the funny thing when she got involved.
Nice.
And I was medical director with AVP first. Is, you know, just awesome seeing all the different schools adapt beach volleyball. I think it's doing a lot for the sport. It's cool to see both of you succeeding. So that's awesome. The big things I want to ask you today, I think that are pertinent to, you know, kind of the whole entire, you know, area that we're in at the moment is, number one, like, you know, what's a story or like something that you attach to within beach volleyball? Obviously we're in quarantine right now. What's a story that like just keeps you driving right now that you go back to?
I think for me, just this like whole quarantine period's been like a little bit of a, you know, like slam on the brakes. You have no choice but to kind of get a little introspective and a little bit just a little bit more reflection of like, why am I even playing the sport still? Like, if I don't have it in my life, what does that mean? Like, when it is in my life, what does that mean? And for me, I think kind of this jarring shift to a little bit of isolation and a little bit of forced downtime has been good, because it's reminded me of kind of that year and a half that I was talking about where I didn't play at all and I took that break. And I think for me, I needed to do that back then, because I was so burned out and I was doing way too much all through college and like wasn't sleeping, overtraining, kind of the classic like obsessive person thing to do. But I also realized during that period, like, not having volleyball in my life made me miserable. Like, I was, you know, had a lot of dark days, was very bummed about it. And I think that just made me really appreciative of the things that, you know, the volleyball community brings us on top of the sport itself, which is like the connection, being outside in the sun, like being with people you love, and yeah, so I think like having that taken away again in a short period of time has made me like extremely more grateful for it when I do get back out there again. So yeah, I don't know. It's been strange and kind of a revert to, a little bit of a volleyball-less life, but yeah, I'm like more raring to go than ever. Like, get me
Uh,
back out there.
I think that's a really good concept for a lot of people that are going to be watching this video, is that, this isn't the end. Like, it's, what we're doing inside right now is it can actually propel you when you get back onto the court, very soon, hopefully, compared to, what a lot of the analysts are saying. That being said, what are some of the things as a professional athlete that you're doing? Like, are you reading books? Are you listening to podcasts? What are you doing to personally grow in this time?
Yeah. Um, I think for me, I kind of go through phases of like, am I doing a ton? I have a very like my husband calls it the hug of death personality, where I get very obsessed with things and I go all in and like really go hard, and then I'm like, okay, I need to back off. So I'd say these 2 weeks I've been in like the okay, let's down cycle, let's back off a little bit. But I think during this time, at least for me, it's like I'm trying to keep movement a really big part of my life, and like just kind of cleaning up some patterns that, when you're training every day, it's like, yeah, I know my arm swing's not perfect, but I've got to just keep working on my shots. I've got to get that going. Might have a little bit of pain, whatever, I'll push through it. Right now, it's like, okay, I can like take the time to make this feel better. I can work on a little bit of a pattern to like, when I do get a ball in my hands again and I'm back on the sand, like smooth it out, probably fix a lot of things that people like you would tell me to fix.
No, I'm glad you said that,
Yeah,
though.
just trying to like scale back. Huh?
Mhm. No, I said I'm glad that you said that, because I think this is a really good time to heal as an athlete. When are we ever going to
Mhm.
have 2 weeks to really sit still and like you said, introspect, like look inside, but look on the outside as well. Like, I love that you brought up patterns, because in volleyball we have a lot of dysfunctional patterns sometimes with a lot of our athletes, right? And so then we're robbing people
Absolutely.
of the ball, and so I love that. So keep going. You're doing great.
Yeah, I think the other thing that I know a lot of us have been doing is like just kind of reaching out to our networks, because all of a sudden you don't have the people you want to connect with. And I've had a lot of really interesting conversations with other people who have been forced to take a step away from the game as well. I was talking to a woman that I coach with, another professional athlete, Lauren Fendrick, and she took this past year off, or most of it, because she had a baby. And that's just a fact that a lot of what female athletes have to go through is you cannot compete while pregnant, right? You have no choice. And so I was just kind of talking to her about like what her process was for coming back. Like, does it feel like her perspective has shifted because of, having to be physically out of the game, but still being mentally in the game via coaching or watching film? Um, and really asking her, like, do you think that this changed the way that you're going to approach training again when you get back out there? And I think her responses were really similar to, how I felt, at least coming out of a period of not playing the sport, was just that when you give yourself time to let your brain like down cycle and kind of catch up to where your body's been charging to over the last few years, I think more connections do happen, whether you're actively trying to cram in more info or not. um, I don't know, I like that kind of parallel was really interesting to me. It was just space away from the game is not necessarily a bad thing.
Who's been some of the major contacts you keep in touch with, and like how's that virtual world obviously compared to our physical world? Like, what's some of the things maybe you've learned about them, or you learned about yourself in this new way of communicating?
Yeah, I mean, I think all of the partners I've had over the years are the people I text a lot. I've been lucky to play with a lot of different people, because we did, we have the AVP where it's doubles and you're just with like, one other person and your besties for the year. But we did a few other tournaments in the past years, which have been snow volleyball, which is a team of 4 with 3 competing. And then we had another tournament that was, 4-on-4, and you have 6 people on the team. So it kind of have these like other built-in layers of friends and teams within the AVP that I kind of compete with still. So just trying to keep in touch with all of them and being like, all right, like, what are you doing? I'm going crazy. Do you have a yoga class I could steal from you? Like, show me a picture of your cat. Like, just keep me from like watching the news and sitting around. So like Instagram's been fun for that. Like, just like FaceTiming people on there. We've been doing some family Zooms with the grandparents, which has been excellent. And yeah, I don't know. I think I've been trying to keep in touch with the kids that I coach too, like a little less on like the FaceTime. I'm not trying to intrude on their life or anything, but just texting like some of the kids that I work with the most, like, hey, I'm doing this workout today. Like, do you want to join me? We could be accountability buddies. Like, cool, you sent me a picture of you lifting. That's awesome. Like, or little
Yeah,
drills, stuff like that. It's been fun.
that's cool. Who's been one of the people that you've seen kind of step out, obviously in the volleyball world, and really push the challenge, programs, or like pushing a lot of content out right now that you think is for a young athlete or a mom or dad sitting at home right now with their kid, to kind of watch, obviously, follow you, and then who are some other people that you think are doing a great job right now in this quarantine?
I think YouTube's such a great resource because it's not just what's been coming out in the last 2 weeks. It's like you have these annals of years and years of good content. And I know that the McKibben brothers, I think they've got a really, really amazing, series on. They do such a good job of like their video production is great, but also I think they do a good job of like singling out the people in the sport who do a skill or a concept really well. They've got like a video of Taylor Crabb on arm swing, and I think he's just so admirable with that. Like it's fast and whippy, and I wish I had his arm. Probably hurt less too. Or like they've got one with Gina Arango on jump serving, and it's like I even watched that when they're my peers, and I'm like, okay, how do I steal their game?
Yeah.
So I haven't looked at their stuff this week. I don't know if they've put out anything. I'm sure they're going to, but I think that they do a great job, and yeah, they have so many videos, so that helps too.
Oh, that's awesome. Looking at this situation, right? Obviously, there's been a lot of loss, and it's one of the big things that a lot of parents are reaching out to me with right now, like senior years and senior seasons, and like obviously with you in tournaments, and now with the Olympics being pushed back, and the opportunity of that being on that team. What's some of the advice that you would give some of these athletes or people that are, thinking that they've lost their entire season? What's some of the advice that you can give them as a professional, going through this and learning how to adapt in different situations?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think that there's one right answer because when it's something you've worked so hard for, I think it's perfectly valid to feel grief or frustration or anger or sadness or whatever you're going to feel because like with sports, we put our soul into it. That's why we do it. And if you're not, then it's like, okay, this isn't for you. Because the financial reward in this sport is not worth it just for fun. So yeah, I'm right there with them. Like I think for me, there's days where I'm like, okay, I'm like enjoying my free time. I'm getting to catch up on Netflix, and then there's other days where it's this slow drip of information. I'm like, oh my God, are we going to lose? They've canceled 2 tournaments. Our first tournament right now is scheduled for June in New York. You see New York every day on the news. It's like, oh my gosh, I'm more worried about the people there, but I'm also like, am I going to get another email that says things are changing again? So yeah, all I have is empathy rather than a perfect strategy. But for me, it's like if you can keep your eyes on whatever your goal is long term, having that long view of like, what is a month of practice really going to get me compared to, where I want to be in 5 years or 10 years or, as long as you want to stay in the sport. I think that's kind of helped me because I think if I'm just like, oh, I want to like kick butt in my first tournament, it's still just a mystery. And I think if I get too attached to that, I'm going to be riding this roller coaster of emotion over the next few months when it's just thoroughly not in any of our control. So yeah. The people who are like in their last season of college though, my heart breaks for you guys. That's heartbreaking. I know that for the NCAA girls and for men's indoor volleyball who just lost that senior season, NCAA is going to give another year of eligibility. I think that came out today or yesterday. So it's really special for the people who can take advantage of it. But I know that there's going to be a lot of people who financially can't afford another year of school or have opportunities they need to go pursue. And yeah, I think just move through it with gratitude and humbleness. And yeah.
I think that, I mean, I just got goosebumps when you said that. Like gratitude and humbleness is one of those big things right now that, I just looking at my situation and knowing like how vulnerable I've had to be in this moment, right? And, I'm used to being just like you, like on the road every week. And all of a sudden it's like, oh my gosh, all this started happening. It was like, okay, PGAs, we're going to keep it open, but no fans. Then it was like, oh, all of a sudden the NBA. And then it's like, and we don't realize how important sports are to our culture. And,
Totally.
massive. Like and so when I look at this now, like I hope the government, and just my opinion, but I hope the government really looks at this and says like, wow, sports are really super important. And in education, we should be supporting that and not look at it from the opposite direction like some people do. Because it's about being a student athlete. So you're a student first and athlete second. And, it's a reward. And it's definitely, one of those things that's tough to hear. With that being said, I want to hear what's your funniest story that you've had in quarantine so far in the last couple of weeks? What's something that like,
oh man,
you think
we have some funny videos because I've been forcing my husband to play with me every day because he's my only person I've made physical contact with. So yeah, we've had some funny moments of, we have extremely high fences in our backyard, but we've still managed to just absolutely launch balls. So it's been like, putting on rubber gloves and writing a note and leaving our neighbor a note saying, please throw our ball back. Yeah, so we've gotten some funny videos. I'm trying to think if there's been any funny stories though. I don't know. My dog's just been glued to me. He's having the time of his life. So at least there's one being who's loving quarantine.
or the other the dogs that are like have 6 family members and they're being walked every like 30 minutes, right?
Oh yeah, he gets like 2 2-hour walks every day because I'm like losing my mind. We walk and like look at the beach and we're like, oh, it'd be so nice.
So to kind of conclude everything where we're at, what's a normal day look like for you without quarantine as a professional athlete in volleyball? For those that are looking at this as a possibility of sport, what does an average day look like for you?
Yeah, so I'd preface it just in that the 99% of people who play professional volleyball are not making their entire income just from the tour and tournament winnings, because it's just not a massively funded sport like a basketball or a football. So I think that no matter who you talk to in our sport, like people are going to be getting creative and doing other things, whether it's like making videos or coaching or holding on a full-time job. And so for me, depending on the part of the year, it looks a little bit different, but I would say if today were today and COVID-19 were not a factor, I would have probably woken up 7 a.m., got some breakfast, went and had a 2-hour practice, down at the beach with my partner and another team, do a lot of scrimmaging, a lot of games, a lot of drills. And then if I was pushing myself, a little bit of beach conditioning at the end, if we didn't crush ourselves with cardio during the practice. Then I usually come home and honestly lay on my floor because I'm super tired. Beach volleyball's hard. Walk my dog, get another meal in, do a little bit of strength stuff in the middle of the day because I don't like showering multiple times. So I try to get it all done before 1 or 2 and then shower, and then I'll go coach in the afternoon. So yeah, what's today? Tuesday I would have my like little kids down at the pier. In the other parts of the weeks, I help out with a high school team or I do private lessons. So yeah, my day has gone from basically being in sand or on sand with a ball in my hands, like 6 to 7 hours a day, either coaching or playing. And now it's 0. So it's definitely weird. It's a weird time, but yeah.
I know, I appreciate you doing that because it's so important for so many people to realize they're not alone. And, especially in the sport where our community is everything. We all know each other. It's like we're family anyway. And, not having that is so difficult. So concluding this, what's one piece of advice, who's a mentor that kind of like, that you can remember or it sticks with you going back into your volleyball career? Like what's one piece of advice that even through quarantine right now that, you can look back to and be like, okay, everything's going to be okay?
Yeah, I'm trying to think of the very smart words that they use because I'm going to botch it. But the idea that a kind of a mental coach imparted, and he was a father of one of the guys on the Stanford men's indoor team when I was there. So he'd come talk to the women's indoor team, and then they're from Hawaii, so I would see them when I was in Hawaii as well. And the idea that you can't ever control the outside stimulus that's coming in, whether it's positive or negative. Sometimes like success can be even as detrimental as, a perceived failure in terms of how you respond to it. So it's just whatever the outside stimulus is, you have the ability to navigate that and to interpret it for yourself and to reframe it. And I know that right now with COVID-19 and this whole, this limitation that's been put on us, it could be really negative if we let it. And honestly, there are days when I do let it and I just need to wallow and play video games and like chug coffee and feel better. And I think that's okay to have moments of that, but I think it's really important right now that we flex that mental muscle of like, how can I take whatever circumstance I'm in, because it's out of our control, and make it a little bit better so that hopefully at the end of summer when I'm back in the sand and siding out, I've at least worked on being mentally tough, or I've at least worked on creating that like reframing muscle, so that when that tiny adversity of like, oh, the ball's coming to me, compared to the adversity we're facing now of a global pandemic, hopefully that perspective stays, and we'll see. I hope.
That was amazing. Thank you for your time. I know obviously you got more than we normally would, so I'm grateful for the time that we had. Tell Tony and AVP that we're super excited. I'm here. We're obviously here to help, and we're going to get through this. And more importantly, good luck with this season when it does start. I know that there's a lot of unknowns. Congrats on last season for sure. It was fun watching you guys win.
Thank you.
And if you ever need anything, reach out to me. I'll make sure that I put your social handles on there for people to follow. And other than that, just thank you for giving back to the sport that we love, and thanks for giving back to people at home right now that are in volleyball or maybe in life, and somebody they can look up to. So I really appreciate you.
Oh, well, and thank you for creating the platform. That's super cool. And I'll be sure to get on there and see what else you guys have going. I'm sure there's some very smart people leaving some very good nuggets on there.
Monica Abbott from USA Softball did one on mental health right now that I think you'd really like. So awesome.
Oh, cool. That'd be very, very timely.
Well, it's on there. So Karissa, thank you so much, and look forward to seeing you on the beach here soon.
Yeah, thank you. Have a good one.